I like to be perfect. And this is why I tend to do things overboard sometimes. I push myself way too hard because I have this very high expectations of myself. And this is not even how people feel or how people perceive that something that I'm doing should look like. This is how I perceive that certain things that I do should look like. And this is actually a mental health challenge that most of us do not realize. But professionalism or being a perfectionist is not something to be proud of. So let's talk about it today. Today, we're going to be talking about tackling perfectionism. Welcome back to the Dash of Colors, your daily source of self-improvement and personal growth. I'm Mimi, your host on this journey towards a more authentic and compassionate self. Today, we're diving into a topic that most of us struggle with, which is perfectionism. And perfectionism is this relentless pursuit of flawlessness that often leaves us feeling drained, anxious, and never quite good enough. Most of us have been in positions where we feel like we have to do something a particular way because of an expectation that we've set up in our head. But don't worry about it. Today we're going to talk about how to tackle this issue and how to find a healthier balance to excellence. First, I need everybody to understand that perfectionism is not really about doing things perfectly. It's also about setting unrealistic, impossible, high standards for ourselves and being overtly critical when we don't meet them. Like, when people say, I'm a perfectionist, they tend to think it's something to be proud of when I don't know what they are thinking, but perfectionism is actually setting unrealistic goals, unrealistic standards for yourself, and you feel like you should be way here when you know that your life is currently down here, right? And then this is something that most people go through and experience, okay? But perfectionism can lead to series of procrastination, anxiety, and even burnt out. Like, this is the reason why it is very important to address this issue if you feel like you have it in your life. And this is because, one, perfectionism stifles creativity and innovation. Because we're constantly in a cat race of trying to do something in a certain pattern to meet a certain standard, we do not encourage ourselves to be creative and innovative. Also, it can damage your relationships as we tend to have unrealistic expectations on others. So you see that perfectionism extends to the relationships that we share with other people, right? And this is the reason why some people say things about the kind of partners they want, and then sometimes when I hear and read those things, I'm like, all these things are things that are really unrealistic, like it's like going to the heavens and molding a man or a woman for yourself to meet those standards because they are just unrealistic. And this is actually a mental health thing that people really do not understand, okay? So perfectionism also prevents you from celebrating your wins because you feel like until you attain a certain goal in your life, you do not need to reward or extend that celebratory praise to yourself, right? And this is very terrible, right? You should be willing or you should be able to celebrate every single achievement in your life. It doesn't have to be something way big. It doesn't have to be something groundbreaking, but an achievement should be an achievement to you. But let's dive into some practical strategies that I feel like could help someone who is struggling to be a perfectionist handle it better. And the first thing is to have an awareness. Is this a condition that you suffer from? Is this something that is happening to you? And then recognize the areas in your life or recognize the times when you're being overly critical of yourself or when you start setting unrealistic standards and goals. Okay. Number 2, I want you to start embracing imperfection. There's nothing wrong with something not being as good as you want it to be. There's nothing wrong with not meeting a certain standard or certain opinion about how things should look and appear. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Okay, so you need to understand that perfection is an illusion, because something could be perfect to you, but to someone else it is distorted. Okay, so you have to embrace your perfections and remember that mistakes are opportunities for you to learn, to grow, and to develop. Okay, so another thing that you could do is to begin to set realistic goals, right? So you can break down your goals into achievable steps, and this is not to make it less overwhelming, but also it helps you track your progress, right? When you know that you're setting realistic goals that have landmarks that you can use to cross-check how far you're doing in any of those goals. Okay, so it's very important to set goals that are within your reach. Also, challenge the negative self-talk, because I feel like everybody at some point has talked down on their capacity or talked down on their individual strengths. So you have to pay attention to the dialogue you have inside your mind, right? Replace all that self-criticisms with self-compassion. Day one, we talk and emphasize on treating ourselves with compassion, because compassion is encompassing every aspect of our lives. Right? You have to learn to show kindness to yourself, right? And you treat yourself with the same amount of kindness as you would offer your best friend. Okay, so the 5th thing that you could do is to focus on the process and not the outcome. I have an entire episode on this. You could find that and listen to it, but you need to shift your focus from the end result of your journey, like when you become that millionaire, when you own that 5-star restaurant and all of that, and focus on the process that you're in right now. Focus on how you're getting to that destination, because that's what's important, the journey and not the end result. Okay, so it's very important that if you're someone that deals with perfectionism, that you begin to address it, because it's a mental health challenge that most people are not aware of. Okay, so remember that perfectionism doesn't lead to excellence. It often leads to stagnation and dissatisfaction, and embracing imperfection rather, allows for growth, creativity, and a more enjoyable journey towards your goal. Okay, before we wrap up today's episode, here's a quote by Annie Wilson. It says, "Perfectionism is self-abuse of the highest order. So let's strive for progress and not for perfection." So that's all for today's episode of Dash of College. Join us tomorrow as we continue our 30-day self-help challenge with another exciting topic. If you haven't subscribed, please do, and turn on the notification so that you would get a beep or a notification when the next episode comes on. Until then, embrace your imperfections and remember, you are enough. Stay positive, stay authentic, and keep growing.